Welcome to the Nifty Noon podcast. Imagine trying to catch a lightning bolt and, I don't know, stuff it into a 70-year-old glass bottle.
Yeah, that's not going to work out well.
Exactly. You can't just cap it. The energy is either going to shatter the glass entirely, or you're going to have to build a completely new kind of container.
Right.
And that friction, that exact collision, is really what we are watching play out across the entire global financial system right now. So I am thrilled you are joining us for this week's deep dive into our newsletter.
It's been a massive week.
It really has. We're pulling together the daily updates from March 9th through March 13th, 2026. And our mission today is simple, right? To help you make sense of a crypto, tech, and finance landscape that is literally shifting beneath our feet.
Shifting fast. And, if you've just been skimming the headlines this week, it might look like just a chaotic scatterplot of random events.
Oh, for sure. A lawsuit over here, a video game launch of it there.
Exactly. Some heavy regulatory jargon mixed in.
Yeah.
But when you synthesize these daily updates, a very distinct, undeniable narrative arc emerges.
Which brings us right to the TLDR for this week. The dominant theme connecting all these sources is the absolute collision and merger of Web3 with the mainstream world. We are watching two totally different realities just smash into each other.
That is the perfect framework, because we're looking at a clear chronological progression here. The week begins with a literal culture clash, right? Legacy retail brands trying to fight Web3 culture in traditional courts.
Yeah.
Then the narrative shifts toward collaboration. Massive traditional finance platforms like the true TradFi heavyweights adopting blockchain infrastructure.
Just absorbing it.
Right. And finally, the arc resolves with federal regulators actually stepping in to establish a clear institutional playbook for all of it.
Which is huge. And look, whether you are managing a serious portfolio or working in tech, or you're just, a naturally curious person trying to understand where the internet and your money are heading, this week's news proves something critical. Crypto is no longer this parallel experimental sandbox. It is actively merging with the system you use every single day. And why should you care? Because the fundamental plumbing of global finance is being rewired in real time right in front of us.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, and you really don't want to be the last one to realize your pipes have been completely changed.
Absolutely. The transition is accelerating. But before this new decentralized technology can seamlessly integrate with the mainstream, it first has to navigate some pretty intense friction with the old guard.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our newsletter kicked off the week on Monday with a story that perfectly illustrates that exact friction.
The Penguin lawsuit.
The Penguin lawsuit. We have PEI Licensing, which is the parent company of the legacy apparel brand Original Penguin. They filed a trademark infringement lawsuit in a Florida federal court against the Web3 giant Pudgy Penguins.
This is a really fascinating legal maneuver, because Original Penguin has been using their specific penguin design on clothing since, I believe, 1956.
Wow, 1956.
Yeah, and their wordmark since 1967. And they're formally claiming that the Pudgy Penguins project completely ignored a cease and desist letter that was sent way back in October of 2023.
And they are not pulling their punches at all. Original Penguin's core argument is that Pudgy's apparel and those wildly popular physical toys they have, they're saying it's causing consumer confusion.
Right.
They argue it's diluting their 70-year-old brand identity. So they are seeking monetary damages, and this is the wild part. They literally want the physical destruction of all the allegedly infringing goods.
The physical destruction, it is a highly aggressive stance.
Yeah, burn the toys.
Exactly. Now, looking at the defense, the Pudgy Penguins team is pushing back hard. They're arguing that they target a fundamentally different demographic.
Oh, totally. A Web3 native digital collectible audience is very different from the traditional menswear demographic.
Right. Furthermore, they maintain that their visual marks are completely distinct from that 1950s Original Penguin logo. But their strongest defense is likely the fact that they've already secured multiple trademark approvals.
Oh, from the United States Patent and Trademark Office.
Yes. Multiple approvals from the USPTO.
See, I look at this scenario and I just see a legacy retail titan trying to put a lid on a massive decentralized internet culture phenomenon. Like, get back in the bottle!
Yeah, they're trying to force it.
But I gotta ask you, playing devil's advocate here, does a federal lawsuit of this magnitude actually threaten Pudgy? Or is getting sued by a 70-year-old legacy brand the ultimate validation? Like, is this proof that you've officially made it to the big leagues?
What's fascinating here is exactly how the broader market answered your question. We have to look at the data. despite the undeniable seriousness of a federal lawsuit.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
And despite a broader altcoin sell-off happening simultaneously across the crypto markets, the native PNG token remained remarkably resilient.
Let's clarify that term really quickly for you listening. An altcoin sell-off basically refers to a market condition where smaller cryptocurrency assets drop in value, usually because investors are moving their capital into safer assets or just cashing out.
Right. So you'd expect a token facing a federal lawsuit during a market downturn to absolutely crater.
Oh, free fall.
Precisely.
Right.
But its price action mostly just mirrored the rest of the market's standard rotation. The community did not panic sell.
Wow.
And that provides a massive signal in the noise. It demonstrates that decentralized communities do not react to traditional legal hurdles the way traditional stock investors might.
Yeah, if a publicly traded clothing company got sued for IP infringement like this, you would expect a massive sell-off in their stock.
Immediately. But here, the token held its ground. It's a real-time stress test for how Web3 intellectual property holds up in traditional courts. The market clearly believes the project has enough momentum and mainstream partnerships to weather the storm.
It's almost as if the market collectively shrugged and said, a lawsuit is annoying, but it doesn't change the underlying utility and community of the network.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense when you look at how the rest of the financial world is behaving. Because if Monday was about legacy retail trying to drag Web3 into a traditional courtroom to slow it down, Tuesday was about legacy finance dragging Web3 infrastructure into their own systems to speed themselves up.
The contrast is striking, really. On Tuesday, the newsletter highlighted a massive development. Nasdaq and Kraken's parent company, Payword, announced they are collaborating to build what they're calling an equities transformation gateway.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because they are utilizing Kraken's X-Stocks framework to connect tokenized traditional stocks with decentralized blockchain networks. And we should note, this X-Stocks framework isn't just like a theoretical concept. It has already successfully processed over $25 billion in volume.
And that volume metric is critical. It proves to institutional players like Nasdaq that the underlying plumbing is already battle-tested.
It actually works.
Yes, and this new infrastructure is slated to roll out in the first half of 2027. The technical design here is revolutionary.
Tell me about it.
It's going to allow traditional public shares to operate as programmable instruments on global networks that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all while maintaining the necessary issuer rights and strict regulatory compliance.
Okay, I want to make sure the listener really grasps the magnitude of this. Right now, if I own a share of a stock on a traditional brokerage app, it's essentially just an entry in a centralized database, right?
Okay.
It only trades when the opening bell rings in New York, and it completely goes to sleep on the weekends. But a programmable instrument...
It's a whole different game.
Yeah. I'm picturing an asset that has code baked directly into it. Something that can automatically execute a dividend payment or transfer ownership instantly without a human middleman at like 3 in the morning on a Sunday.
You've captured the exact mechanism. Traditional equities are passive, tokenized equities are active and programmable.
Let's try an analogy. It feels like Wall Street currently operates this massive, highly secure physical bank vault, but it rigidly closes its doors at 5 p.m. every day. And they just looked across the street and realized decentralized finance is basically an ATM that runs 24/7 on the sidewalk. But I got to push back on the power dynamics here.
Okay.
If Nasdaq is moving stocks on chain, who is absorbing whom? Like, is Wall Street eating crypto or is crypto eating Wall Street?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really isn't about one side conquering the other. It is entirely about borderless liquidity.
Borderless liquidity.
Yeah. Wall Street isn't adopting blockchain technology because it's a trendy buzzword. They are highly pragmatic. They're adopting it because permissionless DeFi ecosystems offer superior, always-on financial plumbing.
The efficiency gains are just too massive to ignore.
Exactly. The institutional validation here is staggering. Major financial firms are now projecting that the tokenized asset market will surpass $11 trillion by 2030.
$11 trillion. That is a mind-bending amount of capital flowing into these decentralized rails. And, speaking of the balance between limitless digital assets and fixed supply, the newsletter also noted a historic milestone on Tuesday. 20 million of Bitcoin's hard-capped 21 million total supply has officially been mined.
It creates a fascinating macroeconomic dichotomy. On one end of the spectrum, you have the absolute algorithmic scarcity of Bitcoin acting as a foundational layer.
Right.
And on the other end, you have trillions of dollars in traditional, tokenized, real-world assets preparing to just flood the programmable ecosystem.
It's an incredible setup, but upgrading the back-end plumbing for Wall Street traders is really only half the battle, right?
Very true.
Because 247 financial system doesn't mean much if everyday consumers find the technology too intimidating to actually use. Which brings us to Wednesday, and a literal masterclass in how to onboard regular people.
Wednesday's update was pivotal. Pudgy Penguins returned to the headlines, and this time it was purely about product execution. They officially launched Pudgy World.
This was such a highly anticipated launch. It is a free-to-play, browser-based game set in this frozen, immersive landscape called the Berg. It features 12 unique, interactive towns, and the central gameplay loop revolves around players working together to help a character named Penglu find a missing friend named Polly.
But the narrative and the setting aren't really what make this a breakthrough. It's the technical and strategic execution.
I completely agree. This is the Trojan horse strategy in its purest form.
Yes.
They have deliberately hidden all the complex, intimidating crypto elements from the user interface. When you log in, there are no complicated wallet setups right in your face. There are no seed phrases you have to write down on a piece of paper.
Right, none of that friction.
Exactly. It's designed from the ground up to feel as welcoming as Disney's old Club Penguin. You literally just open your web browser and start playing.
And the technical achievement powering that frictionless experience is remarkable. The lead developer, known as at Chef Guardi, revealed that they built this entire universe from scratch.
Which is wild.
It is. They purposely avoided using traditional heavy game engines. Instead, they utilized custom open-source web technology. They built their own world-building tools and engineered browser-specific physics. This ensures the game runs at extremely high frame rates, even if a user is playing on a lower-end device like, say, a school Chromebook.
With zero massive downloads required. That is how you capture the mainstream. Compare that to Monday's news. Pudgy isn't just stuck fighting over the rights to physical T-shirts in a Florida courtroom.
No, they're moving forward.
They are actively building a friction-free, immersive digital world that anyone on Earth with an internet connection can access instantly. And the market clearly understood the assignment. The native PNG token jumped 9% on the news of the launch.
And the metrics surrounding their non-fungible tokens, their NFTs, were equally telling. The actual floor price of the Pudgy Penguin NFTs stayed flat when measured in Ethereum.
Okay.
But it actually rose in US dollar terms because Ethereum itself climbed 5% that day.
Let's break that down for you listening, because floor price can sound like typical crypto jargon. The floor price is simply the lowest price you can currently buy one of these digital collectibles for on the open market.
Right.
So if the price in Ethereum didn't change, how did people actually make money?
It's because the underlying currency being used as the measuring stick grew in value.
Yeah.
If you hold an asset priced at 1 Ethereum, and Ethereum's purchasing power against the US dollar increases by 5%.
Your asset is suddenly worth 5% more in the real world.
Exactly. Even though the sticker price never moved.
That makes perfect sense. But I want to circle back to the philosophy behind the game itself. You mentioned how past crypto games operated, and I think that contrast is vital.
This raises an important question that the entire industry has been grappling with. Historically, early crypto games felt like clunky, complicated financial products that just had a thin layer of gameplay painted over them.
Oh yeah, they were spreadsheets with graphics.
Right. They prioritized tokenomics and yield farming over actual entertainment. Pudgy World violently pivots away from that model by entirely hiding the financial mechanics.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask, is hiding the blockchain elements entirely the only realistic path to onboarding a massive mainstream audience?
I think the answer is a resounding, undeniable yes. I mean, if I have to understand the complex thermodynamics of a combustion engine just to drive my car to the grocery store, I'm taking a bicycle.
Exactly.
People just want the car to go. And fascinatingly, we saw another quiet piece of validation for the idea of privacy and hiding digital mechanics on Wednesday. The United States Treasury released a statement surprisingly admitting that crypto mixers actually serve legitimate purposes.
That was a highly significant policy statement.
For those who might not know, a crypto mixer is a service that takes your digital transaction, shuffles it into a giant algorithmic pool with thousands of other transactions, and then spits it out the other side.
It breaks the public ledger trail.
Basically, yeah. It's essentially like putting marked cash into a blender. And historically, governments absolutely hated them because bad actors used them.
Yes, but the Treasury specifically noted the legitimate everyday utility of these privacy tools. They acknowledged that law-abiding individuals might use mixers to shield their personal wealth or uh, obfuscate legitimate business payments from competitors.
Which companies do all the time.
Right, or to protect the privacy of charitable donations and just keep their consumer spending habits hidden from public view. It is a massive step forward for privacy validation at the federal level.
Normal people want privacy, and they want ease of use. They want the tech to be invisible. So if Pudgy World proves that hiding the complex technology is the secret to getting regular people to play a game.
What happens when you apply that to money?
Exactly. What happens when you apply that exact same invisible blockchain strategy to the money people use to pay their rent? That is what happened on Thursday, March 12th. The biggest name in global payments did exactly that for everyday commerce.
Thursday was a landmark day for the industry. Mastercard officially announced the launch of its global crypto partner program. And they didn't just dip a toe in the water to test the temperature.
No, they jumped.
They went all in. They brought together a coalition of more than 85 crypto industry heavyweights. We are talking about major entities like Binance, Circle, Ripple, Gemini, PayPal, and Paxos.
So what does this all mean? When I read this in the newsletter, I immediately thought about your daily life listening to this. Does this mean that by next year you could be sending money internationally to your family or paying a freelance vendor overseas, and that transaction is running entirely on decentralized blockchain rails, but you won't even realize it because your phone screen just reassuringly says Mastercard?
That is the exact reality we are moving toward, and it aligns perfectly with a core belief of mine. Knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied.
Absolutely.
Mastercard is taking the speed, finality, and programmability of blockchain technology and integrating it directly into their traditional trusted payment rails across more than 200 countries and territories.
And their target use cases are incredibly practical. They are focusing heavily on cross-border remittances, B2B or business-to-business transfers, and global payouts.
Yeah.
The exact areas of finance that currently cause the most pain.
Right.
Because right now, moving money across borders requires relying on correspondent banking. You're hopping through multiple intermediary banks. Each one is taking a fee, and it's adding days to the settlement time.
Correspondent banking is notoriously slow, opaque, and expensive. Stablecoins, which are cryptocurrencies pegged to the US dollar and on-chain payments, they settle in seconds for fractions of a penny.
It's not even a competition.
No. These technologies are actively threatening the dominance of traditional card networks because they solve those exact real-world frictions. Mastercard recognizes this existential threat.
Yeah.
Rather than digging their heels in and becoming obsolete, they're making themselves absolutely indispensable to the crypto sector by adapting and building the bridge themselves.
It's the ultimate, if you can't beat them, integrate their underlying tech move. And it's clear that broader macroeconomic stability is really giving these massive corporations the confidence to build this infrastructure. Our newsletter noted on Thursday that the U.S. February CPI data, the Consumer Price Index, which is essentially the economy's inflation thermometer, came in precisely matching expectations at 2.4% year over year.
Right.
So inflation is stable, macro conditions are predictable, and TradFi giants feel safe quietly building the future of money.
But there is a missing piece to this puzzle. You cannot have Mastercard processing billions of invisible blockchain transactions or Nasdaq routing global equities 287 without someone writing the traffic laws.
Right.
Massive global scale requires clear regulatory frameworks. Institutional capital simply cannot flow into a system built on ambiguity.
Which transitions us perfectly to Friday, March 13th. Regulators finally entered the chat, and they didn't just issue a warning this time, they dropped a comprehensive playbook.
They certainly did. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, under the leadership of Chairman Mike Selig, officially initiated a formal rulemaking process for prediction markets.
Okay.
They released an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, commonly referred to as an ANPR, alongside an advisory document, and they opened a 45-day public comment period.
I have to marvel at the regulatory whiplash here, because if you look at the trajectory of prediction markets over the last year, they went from being heavily scrutinized, existing in this incredibly precarious gray area, to literally getting a formal federal regulatory framework drafted for them in a matter of months.
It is a profound institutional pivot. Historically, the agency maintained a very adversarial posture toward these decentralized betting platforms.
Yeah, they were not fans.
Now, they're actively trying to establish how existing financial regulations should logically apply to event contracts. Their primary focus is on ensuring market integrity, basically preventing market manipulation and insider trading.
Makes sense.
By doing this, they are providing a clear, legitimate path to compliance for major platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket.
And Polymarket is clearly preparing for this mainstream integration. Earlier in the week, they announced a major partnership with Palantir and TWG AI specifically to help police their rapidly growing sports betting contracts.
Right.
They are bringing in serious military-grade data analytics to ensure market integrity. But taking a step back, it's not entirely smooth sailing for prediction markets in Washington right now, is it?
No, the political landscape is still highly complex,
Mhm.
and it's important we look at this purely from a factual, structural standpoint. While the CFTC is diligently working on compliance frameworks, lawmakers simultaneously introduced legislation known as the Death Bets Act.
Right. And for you listening, prediction markets are incredibly valuable because they leverage the wisdom of the crowd. When thousands of people put their own money on the line to predict an outcome, it creates highly accurate probability data. But that mechanism gets complicated depending on what exactly people are betting on.
Precisely. The proposed Death Bets Act seeks to explicitly ban event contracts that are tied to war, assassinations, and mass fatalities.
Okay.
The lawmakers introducing the bill cite severe ethical and national security concerns regarding allowing individuals to financially speculate on tragic events.
So there is still clear political friction regarding the boundaries of what can be financialized. But despite that specific legislative pushback on certain categories of contracts, the overarching move by the CFTC to create a transparent, standardized playbook is undeniable.
It is the ultimate market catalyst.
Yeah.
Regulatory clarity brings order to the Wild West. When you establish definitive rules of the road, you unlock a massive wave of cautious, mainstream institutional capital.
Capital that was just waiting.
Yes. That capital was previously sitting on the sidelines because the compliance risk of operating in an unregulated environment was simply too high for a fiduciary to justify.
Okay, looking back at the entire week, we've covered legacy trademark lawsuits, Wall Street equities infrastructure, Web3 browser games running on custom tech, global payment integrations via Mastercard, and federal prediction market regulations.
It's a lot.
It's a ton. How do we synthesize this? How do we separate the signal from the noise?
When you distill all of these diverse sources down, the narrative continuity this week is undeniable. We moved through a very clear progression. We started with conflict legacy brands like Original Penguin, utilizing the courts to sue crypto projects.
Right.
Then we moved into collaboration. Titans like Mastercard and Nasdaq actively integrating blockchain technology to solve their own inefficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended with compliance, the CFTC laying down the actual rules of the road to allow for massive scale.
So what was the noise?
The noise was the daily microfluctuations, the temporary panic over an altcoin sell-off, or the day-to-day movements of NFT floor prices.
Yeah.
Those are distractions. The true signal this week is that the invisible infrastructure for the next decade of finance is being cemented right now, right in front of us.
That is the ultimate takeaway for you listening right now. Keep a close eye on how other legacy institutions react in the coming months. When faced with this technology, do they fight the Web3 wave in a courtroom? Or do they surf it by building gateways, hiding the complex tech, and forging partnerships?
Right.
Because the ones surfing are the ones building the future.
I couldn't agree more. But before we wrap up, I think this week's developments leave us with a vital, lingering question. We are witnessing immense technological progress and institutional adoption, but it comes with a deep philosophical trade-off.
Oh, interesting.
If traditional titans like Mastercard, Nasdaq, and federal regulators successfully co-opt blockchain technology to simply make their own centralized systems highly efficient, do we eventually lose the decentralized, permissionless ethos that started this entire movement in the first place?
Wow, that is the perfect question to end on. We are entering the era of the invisible blockchain, but as the plumbing gets rewired, we have to ask, who exactly holds the wrench? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If you want to keep up with these massive shifts as they happen, make sure to subscribe to the newsletter and follow Nifty Noon on X and Substack. We will catch you next time.